Trump and Milei. Why the U.S. wants to financially bail out Argentina now. While much of the world believes the meeting between Trump and Milei was merely a diplomatic encounter, those who understand power know that nothing in politics happens by chance. Behind that handshake at the White House on October 14, 2025, lurked a move that could redefine the balance of power in the Americas. The U.S., which for decades watched Argentina sink, now decides to bail it out financially. The question is, why now? Trump has never been known for altruistic gestures. His every move is calculated, thought out like a chess piece on a global chessboard. And when a U.S. president extends a hand to a leader like Milei, radical, unpredictable, and anti-establishment, it's a sign that something much larger is at stake. Perhaps a silent struggle for influence. Perhaps an attempt to build a new power bloc in the southern part of the continent. Or, who knows, the beginning of a new political era, where the discourse of freedom replaces that of economic subjugation. The truth is, to understand what's happening now, we need to look beyond the headlines. Because this alliance isn't just about money, it's about control, ideology, and the future. The bailout for Argentina could be the first step in a profound geopolitical reshaping that will place South America at the center of global decision-making. And anyone who thinks this is just a coincidence may not yet understand the real game being played. The historic meeting between Trump and Milei at the White House EM 10/14/25. It was more than a diplomatic meeting. It was a symbolic gesture that echoed across the continent. When Donald Trump welcomed Javier Milei to the White House on October 14, 2025, the world sensed something was shifting on the global stage. The cameras showed two men smiling, but behind that handshake lay the weight of a strategy. Trump, who has always seen politics as a game of influence, seemed to seal a pact between ideologies and interests that extend far beyond Argentina's borders. For Milei, the meeting was more than just a matter of prestige. It was a matter of survival. Argentina is bleeding economically, and Trump knows it. The former U.S. president, now back in the White House, understands that extending a helping hand to Milei is, in fact, an investment in regional power. He's not just helping an ally, but planting a seed, an ideological ally who shares his vision of a minimal state and national sovereignty. It's a calculated move, typical of someone who sees decades ahead. At first glance, one might think this is a case of compassion or solidarity between outsider leaders. But behind the scenes, what one sees is a geopolitical maneuver that combines pragmatism and doctrine. Trump has always known that leading the West requires much more than speeches. It requires positioning allies in strategic locations. And Argentina, weakened but rich in resources and regional influence, is the perfect fit. What seemed like a cordial meeting may actually have been the beginning of a quiet reconfiguration in South America. The Argentine economic crisis and the risk of regional collapse. Argentina is experiencing one of the worst crises in its recent history. Inflation is out of control, the parallel dollar is soaring, and a population no longer believes in the government's promises. For Trump, this scenario isn't just an Argentine problem, it's a continental time bomb. If Buenos Aires collapses, the domino effect could reach Brazil, Chile, and even the United States through the commodities market and exchange rate instability. And Trump, who has always viewed the economy as a battlefield, knows the value of acting before chaos spreads. Milei, with his libertarian and anti-establishment rhetoric, tries to combat decades of structural decline. He cuts spending, confronts unions, dismantles subsidies, and challenges long-held interests, but the political price is high. The streets are in turmoil, and international pressure is mounting. It is at this point that Trump sees an opportunity. Rescuing Milei isn't just about saving a government, it's about reviving a narrative, that of a man who fights against the system and needs an ally who understands the weight of this war. There's a detail few realize. The collapse of an economy like Argentina's would weaken the entire Latin American conservative axis that has been gaining strength in recent years. Trump knows that if Milei falls, his political adversaries, especially those linked to Chinese and Russian influence, will gain ground. Therefore, U.S. financial support is, in practice, a geopolitical investment disguised as economic aid. And behind this gesture lies something even deeper, involving not just money, but global dominance and influence. U.S. interests behind the bailout. No dollar leaves Washington without a well-defined purpose. When the United States decides to financially rescue Argentina, the gesture has much more to do with power than benevolence. Trump understands that every loan, every line of credit, and every economic partnership creates a web of dependency. And in this web, whoever controls the money controls the game. The Argentine bailout, in practice, is a way for the U.S. to reaffirm its influence over the Southern Cone and contain the Chinese advance, which has been trying to establish roots in Buenos Aires for years. China, through investments and agreements with the BRICS, had been slowly gaining ground in the Argentine economy. From financing public works to controlling a portion of agricultural exports, Beijing had become a silent but dominant partner. Trump sees this as a direct threat to American supremacy on the continent. And that's why the financial bailout isn't a gesture of solidarity, but a counterattack. It's a way to rebalance the board, to pull Argentina back onto the Western axis before the Asian dragon swallows it. But there's also the ideological factor. Trump has always opposed globalism and advocates for the strengthening of sovereign nations with free economies. Seeing Milei resist state populism is, for him, like seeing his own philosophy take shape in another country. Financial aid, then, isn't just a matter of foreign policy. It's a way to reaffirm values, cement alliances, and above all, test the strength of a new conservative axis in the Americas, an axis that, if it grows, could transform the balance of power throughout the hemisphere. Trump and the vision of a new conservative axis in the Americas. Since his return to the White House, Trump has spoken less about globalization and more about rebuilding sovereignty. He sees Latin America as a board full of dormant pieces, ready to be awakened under a new banner, that of economic freedom and political conservatism. Milei, in this context, is not just the president of a country in crisis, but a symbol, an echo of Trumpist ideas transposed to the south of the continent, where the people no longer believe in old progressive rhetoric that promises equality but delivers dependence. Trump understands that ideology, when well articulated, is more powerful than any sanctions or army. The new conservative axis he dreams of building involves leaders like Milei, Bukele, and even emerging movements in Brazil and Chile. These are nations tired of systemic corruption, state control, and the victimization rhetoric that paralyzes development. Trump's vision is simple. Unite these leaders around a common purpose, restoring people's sense of responsibility and individual power, and create a front that challenges globalist hegemony. But the genius lies in the subtlety. Trump knows that quiet revolutions are more lasting than declared ones. He doesn't need to invade territories, he just needs to support the right leaders. When strengthened, Milei becomes a mirror for other nations seeking economic and mental independence. And it is precisely there that the seed of something greater is born. A long-term project that transcends borders, challenges powers, and can redefine the political destiny of the continent. The question is the world ready for this new ideological map? How this alliance could redefine South American geopolitics. If the meeting between Trump and Milei is the starting point of a new cycle, the impact could go far beyond Argentina's borders. South America, historically divided between populist rhetoric and alliances with foreign powers, now faces a potential shift. With the U.S. once again targeting the continent, Mercosur could cease to be merely a trading bloc and become an ideological battleground, where every economic decision also carries political and symbolic weight. In this scenario, Brazil becomes a key player. Whether due to its market strength or its diplomatic influence, it's inevitable that Washington and Buenos Aires will compete for its attention. If the Brazilian government aligns itself with liberal policies similar to Milei's, a wave of economic transformations could sweep across the continent, strengthening a new free market mentality. But if it maintains neutrality, it risks seeing regional power slowly migrate to other capitals, and Trump knows how to exploit this kind of vacuum like no other. Latin America is once again facing a historic crossroads. On one side, the advance of the Eastern Bloc, led by China and Russia. On the other, a reshaped West, more nationalistic and less dependent on old multilateral institutions. Trump and Milei don't just represent governments, they represent opposing worldviews. And perhaps it is precisely this collision of ideas that will define the region's future in the coming decades. The board is set, and the pieces have begun to move. What we're seeing between Trump and Milei may seem like just another chapter in international politics, but in fact, it's the harbinger of a much larger shift. A silent movement, almost imperceptible to those who only see the headlines, but clear to those who understand power, influence, and strategy. Nations don't move by chance, and when two such unpredictable leaders come together, the world needs to pay attention. Now the question remains, is this bailout of Argentina the beginning of a new political order in the Americas, or just the prelude to an even greater clash between the West and the Eastern Bloc? Do you believe Trump is genuinely trying to help Milei, or is he simply using the Argentine crisis as a tool to expand his global influence? In any case, the game is ongoing, and understanding its rules is the first step to avoiding being manipulated by it. If you want to continue following these analyses, understand what's going on behind the scenes, and see what the media doesn't show, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with those who also seek to understand the true chessboard of power. The next move may be closer than you think.